Hey, welcome back. My name is Adrian Corral. I'm with Pulaski Technical College in North Little Rock, Arkansas, and we're going to be going over the Quality Control Inspector desk monitoring module. By attending this, you're going to hopefully be able to identify some applicable DOE regulations, talk about which ones apply to taking a look at the WAP, and again, we're using the Weatherization Assistance Program as our example for the type of program that you might be monitoring for. And then we're going to talk, you should be able to discuss the basic fiscal requirements. That means dollar requirements, by the way. Fiscal means dollars. The basic dollar requirements about procurement. We have rules for buying things and for giving out, awarding bids, etc. So we're going to talk some of that. And then also establish paper trail from purchase order to final inspection. You should know what a client file looks like and how it should be put together. Although putting a regular client file together, that changes from agency to agency, how they do that, but you should know what types of things go into it and how to take a look at each step along the way. And then also, speaking of client file, be able to interpret an agency's client file structure. So if you go out, you need to know how to take a look at it, understand what you're looking at, and what the agency means by certain things. It takes a little bit of doing, but you should be able to interpret an agency's client file structure. All right. Also, you should be able to identify some anomalies to know what to flag for on-site visits. What's right, what's wrong, what stands out. If something stands out, probably need to do something. And then also, we are going to practice completing some typical file review forms. So let's get started here. The mission of the Weatherization Assistance Program is to reduce energy costs for low-income families, particularly for the elderly, people with disabilities, and children, while ensuring their health and safety. Okay. The entire monitoring process, in order to be able to perform this mission, is mandated by 10 CFR 440. All right. If you are monitoring in an agency, whether it's on-site or desk, it does not need to be adversarial. In fact, it should be cooperative. You should seek their help, seek their information, seek their advice on how to interpret what you're seeing. And when it doesn't make sense, that's when you need to start digging into it and trying to explain it, because maybe you found an anomaly, something that needs to be corrected. It generally consists of desk reviews of fiscal and programmatic requirements. So how was the money spent, and did they comply with program rules when they spent it? You really have a twofold goal here. One of them is to verify that procurement rules were followed, and two, make sure that the file is pretty self-explanatory. Okay, that is, anybody else that takes a look at that file ought to be able to come to the same conclusions that you do. Okay, if they can't, then it doesn't meet that criteria. It's not self-explanatory. More information needs to be put into the file. It also includes home visits to verify that what we're billing for was installed and installed correctly. Okay, that what we picked to do to the home are the most cost effective. All right, for that particular home. Now, some states have, you may be working under a priority list. This still applies under the priority list. If something was not done on the priority list, then that should be justified. Okay, and it should be justified in light of that home. It should not just be crossed out and said we didn't do it here. We need to know why it wasn't done, and that reason why should be pretty specific to that house, either the home itself or to the client. Okay, and that we also need to know that the home and the client were treated well and with respect. Okay, so monitoring is used as a tool also for determining training needs. When we find that we're not treating a home well, or a client is not being respected, or that we are not following programmatic or fiscal rules, that's an opportunity to come in and say, hey, agency folks, we need to tighten you up on this by, giving you some additional training. We're not just going to point it out and beat you over the head with it. We're going to come back and show you how it's done, why it's done this way, and hopefully we'll see some improvements in short order. So always remember that the program's goal is to serve the client and fulfill the congressional mandate to save energy. 10 CFR 440 was approved by Congress. That's where your congressional mandate comes out. And, you know, this mission statement is part of that 10 CFR, I believe. So here is the 10 CFR 440, the legislation authorizing the Weatherization Assistance Program is known as 10 CFR 440. Okay, all of DOE's rules are intended to guarantee that the taxpayers' money is spent well. That's an important responsibility. We all have personal feelings about the government and money, but we all want to see that any money that is spent by the government, especially on programs like this, is well spent and done according to the rules. That's what all this is about. Okay, you can get the complete document, the 10 CFR 440. It's available on waptac.com. Okay, so let me just add that here. .com. If you put that into just about any search engine, you're going to come up with that site. Okay. Now, fiscal requirements are covered under 10 CFR 600. That covers government procurement. Okay. So our weatherization files are going to have to show how we selected a contractor. What are the criteria? The bid process. What system did we use for bids? A minimum of 3 bids. Okay, we need 3 bids. And then justification for sole sourcing. So if we only have one licensed HVAC contractor in the area, but we got 2 other bids from 2 other contractors, if we go to this one person with the license, then that would be justification for sole sourcing. They're the only ones qualified to do the work, even though we got 2 other bids that we could not consider. Maybe they were lower, but you know, we've got to hire licensed people. All right, so if there's a license requirement, that might be a reason for sole sourcing. If we're purchasing a particular item that only one manufacturer makes, or only one distributor in our area carries or is willing to get for us, then that might be another reason for sole sourcing that particular item. So when we're taking a look at the file for the client, or the client file at the agency, we want to make sure that the bids that we have match the invoices that we receive from the contractor or the supplier, and that all of the measures on the final invoice on final inspection match what the invoices say. So if they say that they installed and we were invoiced for insulation in the attic, we need to find insulation in the attic. We need to find the amount that they said they put in. And then also that the measures listed on the client sign-off are consistent with all of that. So if the audit called for insulation in the attic, we were charged for insulation in the attic, we purchased insulation in the attic, the client signed off for insulation in the attic, there needs to be insulation in the attic. Okay? All right, file organization. Oh, as a monitor, you're going to find all kinds of things. Each agency has a different filing system, and it's going to range from extremely organized, very simple to use, to absolutely chaotic and a nightmare. However, they should be able to come up with the files that you're asking for. Now, before you start making judgments about whether or not you've got a good file or a bad file, read through the entire file. You want to find out how they are organizing their filing, their folders, their client folders. Before you start deciding, well, this is missing or that's missing. You're going to find things like notes on scrap paper, blank, incomplete forms, multiple copies of the same form, unreadable scrawls for signatures, undated or unsigned forms, all of these things. So go through the entire file before you decide something's missing or not correct. Okay, at a minimum, we need to find these few things. We need to find verification of client eligibility. How did we qualify them, and did we verify that based on eligibility? Do we have permission from the client? Did we get them to say, yes, please, here's my permission to do this? If we have building age documentation, which we should try and figure out how old the building is, then anytime we find that, that may key that we need to look for lead paint notification forms, lead safe weatherization documentation. Did we take photographs of our lead safe work? Do we have the forms that we're supposed to have? If this is an old enough building to possibly be in an historic preservation district, do we have documentation and permission from that historic district for that? Do we have a mold and moisture form? That's required. Do we have an audit or an audit report? That is also required. How about a work order? Now, in some places that's called a building weatherization report, a BWR or a BJOS, or there's another, I think in Arkansas we use a BCJOS. It doesn't matter what it's called, that becomes the work order, okay? How about a contractor invoice, which includes materials and labor? Or do we have our crews doing this? So we should also have crew timesheets and some way to show that we've used our own materials we've purchased. So either invoices or inventory reports showing what we've used from the agency. Pardon me just a moment. So how about a final inspection report? Includes any rework documentation. If we have to do that, go back and rework, we should have something. And then we need a client satisfaction form. How satisfied was the client? Did they sign off on it? And what other types of forms might be really useful as far as documentation to have in a client file? Well, how about digital photographs? Okay. If we have anything special or different, it's really nice to have photographs of that, enough so that we don't need a field visit in order to determine whether something was done properly or improperly. So if we have a certain situation, let's say knob and tube wiring in the attic, and we're saying that we paid an electrician to take care of that knob and tube, then perhaps a before and after photograph along with the invoice from the electrician would be good documentation of that. Okay. So some of the essentials that we're looking for is making sure that the paper trail is completely there. Okay. So DOE requires certain forms, and all of those forms should be there. We just went through what some of those were. They also need to be legibly signed and dated. Sometimes we need to ask the clients to sign their name again in a way that is easily read. Any explanatory notes or change orders should be signed and dated. So if we went out and spoke to the client and the client declined something, we reran the audit, okay? We may have two audits in that file, one showing an ECM and the other one not showing an ECM. We would need to understand why we have those two. We would probably need some documentation and an explanation of why we have those two, which one we're going to work to, which one's the valid one, and why it's valid. Okay. So any unusual activity like door or window replacement, skipped priorities. If we did not do something on the priority list, why did we not do it? We need to document that. If we have a large expense, if we have $300 in incidental repair money and we spend $280 of that on a particular thing, we should probably justify why we have that large incidental expense. Blower door or other test reports, we need diagnostic data in the report. If you're seeing an initial blower door and no closeout blower door numbers, then why are we not seeing that? Okay, that should flag something. Now, you're going to have a client review form or a file review form. You need to understand and notice what's on it, what kind of information is being requested. But before you start filling it out, you want to look through the client file. Okay? As you look through the client file, you want to see how it's organized. Are we seeing the majority of those forms that we need there? Are they signed and dated? Okay? And then if you have any questions, get one of the agency folks that is supposed to know to come over and take a look at to take a look at it with you and to clarify any questions that you might have. In other words, clear up the problem. There should be no blanks, and when you review, there should be no blanks. So if you're doing a desk monitor, if you're reviewing a client file, and you've got your monitoring form, as you look for something, if it was looking for, let's say, the ages of dependent children in the household, then you might put NA with an explanation that says no dependent children reside in the household, rather than just putting NA and leaving it, blank. Because at some time in the future, there may be dependent children that do live there. So we need to explain what we're doing. We need to leave a good paper trail as well as a monitor. Okay. So use your notes section. If you've got a notes section, and you should, anything that is unusual to alert an on-site review. So if you see something in there that says more insulation was used on the job than can physically fit in the attic, this might be something that you're going to ask the on-site reviewer to look for. Or if you're seeing that a window was replaced, but there's no photographs of the replacement window, but you do have an invoice for the window, then you might ask them to take a look and see if that window, was the window really replaced. And then when you're done, you want to complete, sign, and date the review form that you've that you filled out. Okay. So let me ask you a question here. What do you think it means when I say a weatherization file should be able to stand on its own? What does that make you think about? Well, to me, it means that the file itself should have all of the explanations that I need, and it should have all the information that I need. I should not have to go and ask anybody that was involved with it any questions about what was done. I should be able to look, knowing what I'm looking for, understand what I'm looking at, read the explanations for anything that might be a little out of the norm, and understand it, and come to the same conclusion as somebody that may have looked at this file before I did. Okay, that's what we mean by standing on its own. Okay, so as we're looking at these files, we need to understand, well, what really shouldn't be there. Okay, windows. Now in Arkansas, we tend to have lower labor rates, so we can get windows to fall out with an SIR. It's not that uncommon. However, in other parts of the country where their window costs and window labor, replacement labor is much higher, that is a flag. So in general, we're going to say that a replacement window is probably a flag. So that's something we want to look into. Replacement doors also, but to a lesser degree. How about expensive incidental repairs? If we're seeing this consistently, we're having to make a lot of incidental repairs. Why is that? Okay, what's going on? And here's a really good one, and that is blower door numbers that are always the same or very consistently the same. If you're looking at a file and you look at 3 files and you're 2501, 2503, 2500, really, those 3 houses all blew about the same thing? Probably not. Okay, that's weird. That should kick you into the what's going on mode. Okay. If we see a pattern of not doing some measures, and some agencies are famous for this, they're just not going to do it. I don't understand that. They've signed up to do it. They should do it. It's what the program's asking them to do. They said okay, and now they're saying no. So maybe they're not doing wall or attic insulation, or ground covers. They're not putting them in, or very few refrigerators get replaced. That should be a key to want to dig into this further. And then how about missing or incomplete forms? And you're seeing that over a lot of different files. So if you're looking at 15 files that day, and none of them, or most of them, have these forms that are missing or incomplete, why is that? Maybe that's a training opportunity. Maybe their auditors or their inspectors are not doing what they need to be doing. Okay. So when you're done, you're gonna write up a visit report, and this is going to be what should be in this report. You should always report on strengths, then weaknesses, and then make any appropriate training. Now, when you talk about weaknesses, you need to do it in a positive way. Okay? We're trying to serve our client and do a good job with the WAP and be responsible in spending our money. These folks are trying to do that as well at the agency, even though what you've just reviewed may not support that, assertion. We want to be sure that we're saying you've done a really great job here and you have the opportunity to do a better job here. You don't want to come back and say, well, you did okay over here, but over here it just sucked. All right, bad job, bad agency. That's not being really positive. We want to be positive because everybody is in this with a goal to help the client, everybody. So we need to keep that in mind and help keep people motivated to do that, okay? And you do that with the way you write your reports up. Nobody likes to get a bad report. And remember, once you put it in writing, it's hard to take it back, okay? It's hard to take back words that you've said. It's much harder to take back words that you've written, okay? So let me sum this up. Monitoring is a necessary evil, and it's a good thing because it keeps everybody on the same page. It keeps the entire state program heading in the same direction, and it ensures that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. Desk monitoring is really good because it can provide some really good information to start us down the path of training if necessary, or to target site visit investigations. We may find 2 or 3 of these homes that we really need to go and take a look at because this file is really looking questionable. Okay, so we do that by using the notes section. Use the notes section on your report form. Fill that out so that you can alert any on-site monitors that may go out and take a look at what you're questioning. Be sure and question it there. Okay, and include positive reinforcement in your report. Be sure to let your agencies know what they're doing well, why they're doing that well, in your opinion. Are they really doing a good job because it's, they're too dumb to do a bad job? No, they're doing a good job because they show compassion, they show concern, they're paying attention to details, and that helps when you're also pointing out some of their weaknesses, is to say that this is a great opportunity to show more compassion or to pay more attention to this type of detail, which is important because it turns into dollars saved for the agency. All right, that sums up this section. I appreciate it. I hope you got a lot out of this, especially the monitors. We look forward to seeing you in the next section.